Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, loaded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry havoc, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is loaded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Now, come on, you can, lump boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Alpha.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In, where we take time, and it's a necessary time, to just sit back, relax, and talk movies, because we need breaks. We all need breaks, especially in this day and age, and we got a good one tonight, Top Gun Maverick. Before that, as always, I'm joined by Jed, the Hollywood Scholar. Hi, Jed. How are you?
I am actually doing really good. For the first time in what feels like years, I didn't subject myself to watching any shit this week. It's really quite a miracle. All I've been watching is Star Trek, the original series. I'm about halfway through season 2, going to do a full marathon all the way through. And with my wife, we just started a rewatch of Supernatural. So we're in the early seasons of Supernatural, just hit season 5. And then watched this movie, Top Gun Maverick, which I enjoy so much. It's not a great movie or anything, but by comparison to everything else we get these days, especially long-lost sequels, this is probably the only long-lost sequel that I think really, like you said in the green room, justifies its own existence, because a lot of the we don't need follow-ups to Ghostbusters. Even as what was Afterlife was okay, we didn't need it.
I mean, honestly,
same with a lot of these.
I mean, especially if you want to bring up like Ghostbusters, good example. There's been a lot of different follow-ups. The best follow-up to Ghostbuster is the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon. That's the best follow-up to the original movie, because it expanded the lore and the universe, but still made it friendly and easily accessible without ruining the characters. It kept them locked in, and it was always fun. And it holds up today. The real Ghostbusters as a cartoon still holds up. It's still fun. It doesn't treat kids like idiots. And this movie didn't treat the fans like idiots. And like you said, I actually, I haven't watched any shit this weekend either. I mean, when I had power, I was fine. But
Didn't you have to watch SpongeBob and review it this week, or was that a different?
I don't count what I do for.
Daily Dive doesn't count. Okay.
That doesn't count. What they subject me to on that show, 1 p.m. every Monday through Friday. What I get subjected to there, that's different. One, because I'm actually getting paid to do it. So that does soften the blow.
That's like saying a whore's a virgin because she doesn't have sex without getting money for it.
No, I'm talking in my downtime, or because let's be honest. Yes, I had to watch SpongeBob. I've watched other cringe shit on Daily Dive this past week, but again, that's stream related. I haven't had to watch anything to review for a while. We've had to have anything to review, and in my downtime, I'm so happy it's the end of the spring anime season. It's over, which means I get a flood of fresh anime to watch. So I'm very happy right now. I'm getting new stuff because that's the only new I ever get these days is anime when every season ends.
Well, only new that's any good.
Good. There you go. Good point. Yeah. So I've gotten that. So I'm actually good. I'm watching. I finished up a really good show that I started the other day, and then I got a couple other shows lined up, and I still got at least 4 or 5 more. Once they're done, their seasons will be done in the next week or two. So
all this joy will fade when Baby Steps comes out, though.
No, all this joy will fade when Superman comes out.
Are you reviewing that one? I thought
yes.
Baby Steps was the only one.
Oh,
are you doing the big 3 or just Superman and
just Superman, Baby Steps?
Okay.
Nobody needs to review dinosaurs. Nobody needs to review dinosaurs.
I don't understand how that last one made money. It was awful. Oh my god!
You're not going to understand this one either, except dinosaurs. That's it.
They're trying to cure cancer with dino DNA.
Dumb. They tried to do it with shark DNA in what was that Samuel Jackson one?
Deep Blue Sea.
Deep Blue Sea. Yeah.
I've never seen it. I just Samuel Jackson sharks. That's the only thing that came.
Yeah,
to mind.
they were trying to cure cancer in that one with shark DNA. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly. Yeah. So no, listen, dinosaurs is going to rule the day. We're getting slightly off topic. We'll get back into it. Don't worry. But dinosaurs is going to rule the day. But yeah, I'm reviewing Superman. Please, you think I'm passing up that content? Hell no. I have talked so much shit in the past year on this movie. If I don't cover it, that's the coward's way out, good or bad. So besides, I have to see if I'm right.
You're gonna get the Crypto Dog Bowl popcorn bucket?
No.
I
don't think they sell those at the beach.
But yeah, right now is not a good time to try to be a critical thinker, like with Superman. Like trying to balance take. We'll say balance take instead of critical thinker.
Yeah.
Because with the Switch 2, just because I'm like, I don't want to buy it right now. Both sides hate me. And with you with Superman, I'm not a Snyder Bro or a Gunn fan in this case, and so everybody hates you.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no winning.
Sane people like my take because it's basically
right.
Prove me wrong.
It's just more vitriol than normal for taking one side.
Yeah. Listen, I purposefully misquoted something last week for a short, and oh boy, they weren't happy with me. I did. I was like, I'm not gonna give this the proper vetting. I'm just gonna say what's quickly on my mind from the article, and we'll see where it takes me. But that's a discussion for tomorrow on Roundtable. We've got plenty of stuff. For now, though, here on Saturday Night Drive-In, we're going to talk Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to the 80s classic Top Gun. So hail and howdy, everybody in the chats. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channels. Real subscriptions, not ones that YouTube will strip away 20 minutes after a stream. No, real subscriptions, please. And enjoy the rest of the show. Okay, so it's, as you said, it's 2022. And up to its release, there had been a lot of hesitation for people to, what's a good word for it? Have faith in Top Gun Maverick. Because we are now at that point 3 or 4 years into the assault on all our franchises. And let's be honest, at that point, we didn't know if we could trust Tom Cruise, could we? In terms of making movies in 2022. We didn't know that.
Not at that point. I admit, I thought this movie was going to be bad when in the lead up to it. Another long lost sequel, another revisiting of an old franchise. I was sick of it by that point. And this is one of the only times that I'm not still set in that mindset that, it's a waste of time. But in the lead up, absolutely a lot of people were hesitant at best.
Yeah, at best. But it turned out that all fears were unwarranted because this movie literally took off and just skyrocketed at Mach 10. See what I did there? Skyrocketed at Mach 10 to be the biggest movie of the year, and where everybody,
especially post-COVID,
yes, and where Tom Cruise was hailed as saving Hollywood and saving the industry, and Tom Cruise himself became the last movie star in that moment with how he treated everything. Just said to the fans, "Enjoy the movie. We hope you like it." Didn't say anything, and Tom Cruise has since become trustworthy. Whether or not you think the movie is good, we trust that he's doing his best. That he's trying his best to make a movie for everybody.
To just be entertaining.
Entertained, exactly. So, Tom Cruise put this out. Here we go. Top Gun Maverick, taking place literally 30 years. They repeat that a lot. 30 years. 30 years. 30 years, a lot of it. So, Jed, why don't you set us up with the story, the opening plot of this, because it was your choice this week.
Okay, so yeah, this is 30 years after the events of the original film, and I know this bothered a lot of people, but this is something that I like about going away from the ending of the original Top Gun. I don't like Maverick going back to teach at Top Gun right after the events of Top Gun. That always bothered me. So this film has him as a test pilot for an experimental aircraft that's trying to get up to Mach 10, at least for the initial funding phase of this project. They're not going to make it. They're going to get shut down by a general wanting to focus that money on the drone program. Maverick, in Maverick fashion, decides to quickly do a test flight, get it up to Mach 10, and save the program. Unfortunately, as Maverick always does, he pushes the limits and pushes beyond what his authority is at that moment and tries to go to Mach 10.2 and as high as he possibly can. And the plane just explodes in the upper atmosphere. I don't know how he survived that. I mean, he did have an ejection seat, but that is a long fall that he had, ending up in some random town in Idaho. And that puts him in a little bit of a delicate.
I didn't know where.
So. They showed the map right before he crashed, like where it was curving around in the command center. And he was over Idaho at that time, but with how fast he was going, he could have ended up in Oregon or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a very beautiful scene, and I actually have some issues with how the next few scenes play out. They act like Iceman comes in and rescues him. It's like, oh yeah, you're fine. You're getting transferred to Top Gun. But at the same time, they're also like, oh, there's this other situation going on, and we were going to transfer you anyway. That kind of hiccup in the timeline bothers me a little bit. But for whatever reason, he's going back to Top Gun, and the best of the best graduates of Top Gun are coming back to be trained by him for a super secret mission in a nation of undisclosed identity to prevent them from achieving nuclear power or nuclear weapons. So the entire film is training these pilots to get ready to do this assault, and then the assault and everything that plays out after that. So he is the instructor now, but the reluctant instructor. And that's how I see Maverick fitting into that role much better.
And they do a good job in that first act of telling us Maverick's history of the past 30 years. He says, I quit after 2 months at Top Gun. He thought he wanted it, didn't want it. And then throughout the rest of the first act, they let us know that he bounced around every major conflict in the world for 30 years. He was there doing stuff, doing the impossible, because he is the best of the best. And one also, it's very, Tom Cruise easily slipped back into Pete Mitchell. Very easily slipped back in there. So I felt comfortable seeing him as Maverick again. It didn't feel uncomfortable or awkward. He was very good about that.
It's not a Harrison Ford situation coming back as Han Solo and he's like, yeah, I'm just so tired all the time. Or Indiana Jones. It doesn't feel like his classic characters, but with Tom Cruise, yes, absolutely. And I actually like to think of this movie as not necessarily metaphorical, but maybe an analog for what Tom Cruise is experiencing in his career as well. Maverick is the hotshot pushing his body and the technology to their utmost limit, just like Tom Cruise does with his stunts. And he feels age coming on. He feels like retirement is looming in the near future. And he's got to grapple with that idea of where do I go when my body no longer allows me to do what I've always done and be the best at this. And I see the metaphors between the fighter pilot stuff and the stunt stuff to be actually a strong metaphor for something that Tom is currently going through. And I love how the message of the film perfectly encapsulated near the beginning when Tom is being reprimanded by the general who wants to funnel the money into the drone program. Yes, maybe we're going for extinction, but not today. And we're going to do the best we can with today and focus on nothing else. And I see that as his career. He's doing his last big hurrahs. He's being Maverick in his career. I don't know if that's reading too much into it, but I could see him getting invested in the story because it's his own story at this point.
I felt Ed Harris was a little wasted as Admiral Case real early on in the movie. It's like he's there and gone. And they had him top billing in the opening credits. And Ed Harris. Okay, is Ed Harris going to be part of this movie? No. He's there for literally 5 minutes and gone. And I like Ed Harris as an actor, so I thought, oh, we'll see. Is Ed Harris, what's he going to do? There's nothing. Because John Hamm is the antagonist admiral for the rest of the movie.
I would rather have had Ed Harris play that character and John Hamm be the cameo.
Yeah, because I think we would have had better scenes with Ed Harris and Tom Cruise than John Hamm, because John Hamm, he's kind of phoned it in. I didn't really get anything out of his Admiral in this one. But yeah, so now the rest of the movie is basically putting this team together. The best graduates from the Top Gun for the past clearly 10 years, because these are all youngins. These are not veterans. They're all lieutenants or lieutenant, or they're all various grades of lieutenants. And here's my first problem with the movie. They had 12 people selected for this mission to try and earn their wings for this mission. We only really deal with 6 of them.
So it's kind of obvious who's going to get selected.
Exactly. This movie suffers from character bloat, if you ask me. There's too many characters in this movie, too many mini storylines going on where you don't get into development. I mean, in the first movie, we were focused on the class of Top Gun for that year. Maverick, Ice, Goose, Slider, all the other dudes are in there. We're focused on all those guys and their relationships, and some got more attention than others. Of course, you're going to give Ice and Mav most of the attention outside of Maverick and Goose, because it's a friendly rivalry there. You know, they don't hate each other, but they don't necessarily like how each other works. Of course, what I really loved was now in the post of that, the fact that Ice and Mav are such good friends for 30 years. And I like that in this. That a true bromance happened, and that Ice, who followed the proper career path, made it to Admiral, to the point where he's the entire commander of the Pacific, whatever you call it, fleet. Thank you, fleet. Thank you. Fleet carries that much weight, and of course, because Maverick was his wingman and he understands him, he knows that Mav is always going to get into trouble, so he looks out for him and makes sure he keeps him active. I like that whole relationship. And I'll jump to it now. So we're talking about it. The respect they gave Val Kilmer in this movie, his final role,
it's incredible,
really good. Realizing that the texts that we're seeing this back and forth, that is how he's speaking this, because Val Kilmer had throat cancer and it reoccurred in the past 3 years leading up to this role, and he couldn't speak more, but he still managed to get out a little bit dialogue, but still in those moments when Ice orders him to come see him at his home, and we see his family, and it's really nice to see that Iceman had a family, a career, respected. And because remember we talked about this in the last when we reviewed Top Gun, Ice wasn't a dick. He's not a bad guy. He's just
not at all
very by the rules, and he had a certain way of doing things that was the opposite of how Maverick does it. Methodical, cool, collected, doesn't push it, but still knows that he can turn it up and be the best. The fact that these two managed to have that kind of relationship where Ice kept it on track, but looked out for his buddy who continued to push it and only made it to captain. I like that line. You should have been a 2-star admiral right now, or running for senator or senator. And it's basically Maverick's like, well, I guess I couldn't. And Kel is right. We said that in our review. Ice did get Goose killed. Ice did that Ice's inability to let Maverick take over in that training session did get Goose killed. We did talk about that. I believe we did in our review of the first movie. But either way, I like the treatment of this. And during that scene where they're in there and he's texting and reading the screen, Val Kilmer does more acting with visual emoting than most people can do in a full dialogue movie in modern cinema right now.
Oh, behind Tom, he had the best performance of the film, and I don't think it was close. At this point, he was still one of the greats. Even with all the things holding him back, he could do more than most other actors. And when he did deliver his just 2 or 3 lines, they were done like a normal actor with a mouthful of marbles, and yet he still pulled off so much emotion in them, and it made the audience emotional. I admit, I get emotional when I watch that scene. It's very compelling because just like as I see this movie being kind of an analog for Tom Cruise's life, this scene is us saying goodbye to Val Kilmer. There's that real world analog. So our real feelings for Val Kilmer being applied to the scene as well just make this such a powerful moment, especially with the joke at the end. The joke actually works. It's not undercutting it in a Marvel way. It's undercutting it in a natural fashion.
Do we really want to do this in our last moment? And that's them saying, do we really want to do this in our last one with the other. It's a good joke. And then they give him the honorable send-off because Ice dies but at the beginning of the third act. And he gets the funeral. And it hits Mav hard. Because you think about it, at this point, that's Maverick's oldest friend at this point. A comrade, a brother, his wingman. Because I love that line when he's training the guys and Hangman bails out and says, "Wow, you left your wingman. I haven't seen that in a while." He's the one that did it. So it's funny as hell that that's one of the things that is good about this script, to jump back into that. There's proper callbacks to the first one. It's done properly. It doesn't, there's a lot of nostalgia here, but it's done properly. It's not cheesy.
Crippling nostalgia.
No cringe. Except I will say that the guy playing Rooster could have done without the mustache.
It was a little obvious to have him do the mustache so we could recognize him by his photo, if nothing else, early on.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about, I really like the direction they went with Rooster, because they could have gone the generic route and just had Rooster resent Maverick for getting his father killed. That would have been the most obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you remember the first film, even Goose's wife didn't blame Maverick for that. She understood the situation. And like we were saying, with honoring the classic characters like Val Kilmer, I feel like they honored her and Goose very well. The way that he's like, I made a promise to her, I'd keep.
And he never says
away.
it. He never breaks that promise. And they're able to reconcile through manly deeds by being badasses and communicating in a way that only men like that can communicate. Because that's kind of a thing. These are guys who are best expressing how they feel and how they react to things through their action. These are men of action. And sometimes men of action can only communicate through action. In this case, death-defying, near-death experiences of high-intense combat situations. So you mentioned
one of my favorite lines from this arc, though, is when Tom is in bed with Jennifer Connelly, which I do want to get to. He said, "Rooster's going to resent me for the rest of his life. Why should he have to resent his mother too?" I love that he's willingly letting himself go through this torture to preserve Rooster's memory of his mother. Be the bad guy.
Sometimes that's what a man does. That's an example of what a man can do to carry something, to carry a burden that maybe was unnecessarily placed on him, but nonetheless is on him. And therefore he does it to protect a memory, to protect something that is important. And I'm glad they didn't stupid Meg Ryan in the movie. I'm really glad they didn't do that. I'm really glad. That would have made the cast bloat even worse. But so we got all these. We got Rooster, who is, of course, the son of Goose. You've got Hangman, who really, if they had trimmed down the cast, they could have done more of that character.
He definitely deserved more because, I see him as everything that the Navy thinks Maverick is. He's the worst traits of Maverick taken to an extreme.
He never learned the lessons Maverick did in Top Gun. Because he'll look in this training session, he still leaves his wingman. That's his call sign is Hangman because he leaves people hanging. He'll leave his wingman. So he didn't learn Maverick's lessons. And yes, does he get his own tiny arc? Does he get humbled? Does he learn the lessons? Yes, he does. But yes, it is cool and totally freaking predictable when he saves them. At the end, there's like you know it's going to happen. He's the only one. He's the only one prepped to go on the flight deck. Of course, it's going to be him.
That moment was really obvious. The moment I actually look towards as being the better one for his character is right before they all take off from the aircraft carrier, and Hangman's talking to Rooster, and he's like, "Go kick it in the ass." He's like, "You got this. Take care of it. Do the work." And he that's him giving up his pride at that moment to be supportive, and I see that as the more powerful character moment for him. Because that moment at the end, it's 100% foreseeable and it's fun, but it's not that deep. Some people see that as his redemption moment. I see the moment with Rooster.
That's him doing his fucking job. That's what he's doing. He's doing his job, watching their backs. Because we'll talk about the final scenes in a minute. Because when I was watching this, and I'm like, okay, we're at 2 hours 10 minutes, and we're starting the mission. This mission is not going to take 40 minutes. I'm sorry, we're an hour. Not the movie's 2 hours, 10 minutes. We're at 1 hour and 20, 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. They're starting the mission. This mission's not going to take 40 minutes.
There's other stuff gonna happen.
It's a 2 minute 15. It's 2 minute in that point 30-second mission. What are they going to do? And of course, then we're graced with the final bits of that. And that's so much nostalgia in that. So we'll leave that as the last thing to unpack. But the whole leading up to it, so we get all these other characters. We get Phoenix, we get Bob, we get Hangman, we get the black dudes whose names I can't remember.
Who end up being in Mission Impossible.
They are? Oh no.
Tarzan is that's his real name. His real name's Tarzan. I can't remember his call sign, but he was the bully that was always behind Hangman, hyping him up through all that. He's in the last 2 Mission Impossible films. He's actually on Ethan's team. He's set up as being one of the main team members, and he has no character.
Yeah, so then those guys, and they have no real character in this. You get the characters that get work in this, of course, Maverick, Rooster. You get a touch for Hangman. You get a little for Phoenix, a little for Bob. You get a lot for Penny, and you get, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, a lot of nods to other characters. It is bloated.
There are still another 6 or 7 characters that are featured and get nothing. You get a little for Hondo. I wish you got more from Hondo on what
he was a good character, but I think it would have been better to cut him. Either give him a lot more to do or give him nothing.
Yeah, like he could have been somebody to give Maverick a speech and let us know what their relationship has been for the past. Clearly,
it just feels like he's there the whole time. He's a funny character. I do like his character quite a bit, and that moment he shares with Maverick right before taking off from the carrier, it's a great moment. But yeah, there's so little with him that I don't even get why he's here. He was on the original project.
The problem is, I feel like I want more of Maverick. Here's the problem again, where the story does kind of fall apart a bit. We get a taste of what Maverick's been doing for 30 years, but it's always glossed over. And you could have spent time on that in certain conversations rather than dealing with characters who don't do anything. And that's kind of my issue with the overall movie. They could have somewhere cut at least 30 minutes out of this movie, I feel like. 20 to 30 minutes, something like that. Streamline it just a little bit more to get to this, because this is a different movie from Top Gun.
Yes, it's very different. This one's way more an action movie. That one, I wouldn't consider the first one to be really an action movie, because there's only one dogfight, real dogfight.
The beginning and the end. There's 2 sets.
There's no shots fired in the first one.
True. Well, there are action set pieces, but it's basically stunt set pieces where we're seeing the jets doing cool shit. This one, and the story in that one is just who's the best. And then the character path of Maverick and what he goes through. In this one, yes, there's a character path for Maverick, but there is an actual plot that we're following. Unknown Nation, which is fine because that's what they did in the first one. It was understood in the first one that it was communist Russia, it was Soviet Russia. In this one,
it was Cold War era movie, or near the end of it, but yeah.
In this one, it's some Fuckistan nation that somehow has 5th generation fighters. I thought at first, wait a minute, 5th generation fighter. Are we talking about maybe Chinese? But no, the Chinese already have nuclear weapons. It's not.
A lot of the major antagonists that we'd expect them to go up against already have nuclear capability. They specifically say this is a nation who doesn't. So that takes out Russia, that takes out China, that takes out North Korea, all the normal heavy hitters. So it's got to be some Fuckistan. But where is Fuckistan getting this many resources? All this old
5th generation jet that is doing aerial gymnastics and has ever go, whoa, what was that? When it does like that lateral thing, or what is that? I mean, that was CGI to CGI. I mean, there were practical effects in the movie. That's one of the reasons this movie was hailed during its release. A lot of the F-15 stuff, that's all practical, real jets flying around doing it, just like in the first movie with the Tomcats. But having it be Unknown Nation is fine, but it stretches my suspension of disbelief when it's, how do they have a 5th generation fighter, or at least 3 of them that they have to contend with?
It could have just been a line like they're being funded by some bigger superpower or something like that. Like it's a staging, like Cuba, like the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba was a front man for other things going on in the world. So just a reference to it being an analog for Cuba, I think would have worked a lot better.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just something I was asking myself during this. Once I realized, no, this isn't China. This is some Fuckistan nation that wants a nuke. So, but and either way, so the whole point of the plot is to stop them from doing it. They have a limited time because they've almost reached the amount they need to have enough to make weapons. So now they're, as you said earlier, they're bringing in Mav to select and head up this team and figure out how to put it together. And of course, he's not a good teacher, which is good. It's a flaw. It's a good flaw in Maverick. And we get a little bit of backstory that he had, because of his bad, I don't want to say behavior, his inability to conform to rules, he's bounced around different theaters, finally landing as the test pilot for the Mach 10 scene, which is a cool scene, by the way. That's a very cool scene. But he's not a good teacher, and none of the students are really, well, here's the thing. Before we go to the next thing I want to talk about, let's talk about the whole training montage of everything going on. One, it is cool to see Maverick kick all their asses. I loved every second of that. And when he's doing crazy shit like going up between them, this and that, and just showing, hey, okay, hot shots. I was here first. I am still the best. And I'm going to show you why I'm the best. And it's very cool the way he does it. I appreciate it. Although I did feel like it was what they called the Cobra maneuver, the snake maneuver with him and Rooster. I felt like that was an unnecessary scene where they were spiraling.
I think that built the animosity a lot. Like, we can have scenes where they're just kind of like glaring at each other, Rooster's glaring at Maverick, but a scene where it comes to head like that, I think a scene like this was important. It might have appeared in a different form, but a scene like this, I think, was important to.
I don't disagree. You're right on that. I just don't like that scene. There's something about it that I just couldn't, once again, grab onto. It was stretching my sense of disbelief. My suspension of disbelief, because I just don't feel like they would get away with something like that at the end. There's a lot that these guys get away with in this movie that nobody gets censored for, or this or that. They get away with a lot. But the whole training thing is cool. But like I said, when you realize they're focusing on 6 people, and the other ones that are backups are just kind of pushed aside after the push-up montage. Like, yeah, we're not gonna. We don't see these guys anymore. Or their attempt to repeat homoerotic volleyball with homoerotic football. It's
a team building moment.
A team building moment, and it was okay. But
I think it would have been interesting if they had subverted expectations in an intelligent way, where you're following these 6 crews or whatever, and then the ones that we expected to get it, like you're saying, didn't get it. Maybe Phoenix and Bob weren't selected, and it was these characters that we hadn't been interacting with, and Rooster and them were like, wait, these people were selected? We don't know them that well either, just like the audience. And so there's that sense of, do we know these people? Do we trust these people? Because their own inability to make friends with outside the elite 6. I think that could have played into it in an interesting way, but they just kind of went with the cliche instead.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with those characters. Phoenix is fine. She's not a whammon's in charge.
Oh, not at all.
She gets humbled as much as everybody else. And the character's good. The actress is fine. I feel like they thought they were going to do a romance between her and Rooster and jettison that idea really quickly.
I'm glad they did.
Yeah, it would have muddled the movie even more. If there had been less characters and it had been a movie focused on them, then I could have seen it. But in this situation, it would have muddled the story. Instead, our romance goes to Maverick and Penny. Jennifer Connelly, still high and tight, still hot. Clearly, they give us a quick information dump on their history, that this has been his on and off girlfriend for the past 20 years or so. And I don't dislike it, but I'm not going to say it's unnecessary.
All right, I'll say it for you.
Okay.
She's the worst part of the movie. I wish they had cut her out entirely. The only thing of benefit that she gives to the movie is that scene that I talked about earlier when Maverick tells her, why should I make Rooster's already going to resent me for his whole life? Why should I let him resent his mother as well? That's the only thing I see value from her character. And I don't know if you caught it. She was built up as a member bearer to a certain extent as well. In the first film, they mentioned that he had an affair with an admiral's daughter named
She's
Penny.
the one in the pilot that he took for a ride. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't think she needed to be in the film. The character work was strong enough. I get where they're going with he might in some point in the future retire and live happily with them at the bar or whatever, and the
It's a
daughter.
commitment thing. It's the commitment thing that Maverick doesn't commit to anything, and suddenly, after reconciling with Rooster, someone of this, and all these things, he's ready to commit and settle down. But
We
I
could have
see
seen that in a lot better way. I don't like her as a character. Like the whole buy the entire bar a round of drinks and throw you out if you can't. That's at least $1,000 that she was asking him to fork up without prep. That's insane, in my opinion. That's insane for a bar to do.
There were a lot of they could have cut down the scenes, and so I mean, she was his confidant in a way for this, someone who understands him and is able to talk him through situations. I didn't mind it so much. I just thought they went back to her too much in this. They went back to her too much. We didn't need the sailing scene. That was completely unnecessary.
I really wish they had cut her out so we could have more time with Rooster, with Hangman, with Hondo.
And there's the problem. There's not enough time with Rooster in this movie. For at least for me to have the connection we're supposed to have by the time we get to the third act, or at least when they're practicing and everything. I'm not rooting for Rooster in this movie. I'm honestly not. I'm still rooting for Maverick. So it was no surprise for me when after the admiral in charge of this is about to kick Maverick out because after Iceman dies, it's like, okay, you don't have your protection anymore. I'm not going to keep you here. I was doing it as a favor for Admiral Kaczynski. Maverick does the very cool thing of showing everybody that it can be done, that the run can be done. That's a very cool scene. It's an excellent scene. And watching everybody get involved and into it and then committing to it. After that, he, of course, gets put in charge. Predictably put in charge. There's no way you're leaving Maverick out of this high-octane finale. He wasn't going to be left out.
Oh, it's of course going to happen. But leading into what you, or following back up on what you had said earlier, is I think this scene is so good with him doing the course on his own that because of the setup for it. We'd spent so much of the movie just showing how insanely ridiculous this maneuver that they're planning on doing is. Just every step of the way, the best of the best, failing. Even at the small, easy aspects of it, like this time. They can't even keep up with the time. They can't keep up on the turns. They can't nail the target, none of that. And what a lot of people forget or gloss over is Tom plays both roles. It's supposed to be two jets, one with a laser pointer pointing, the other one shooting the target. He does the laser shooting with one hand and nails it with the other. He's doing both Bob's and Rooster's job at the same time. He's doing the work of 3 people at once and still nails it. And it's just set up so beautiful, I think, through the film, just showing how insanely ridiculous this is. And that's why I don't like the devaluing of this movie and this sequence by people saying this is just a ripoff of the trench run from A New Hope.
Oh, bullshit.
That's simplifying it. It's like, it's a tight space with a shooty hole at the end. That's a hard shot.
I remember that. I remember people saying
that's just simplifying it too much. The trench run is awesome, but it's a straightaway.
Yeah.
And then it's hitting one thing small. There's not the teamwork aspect. There's not the hard turns. There's not the climb out of there or the inverted dive. It's just unnecessary to devalue this movie by that comparison. Just saying, oh, it might be an homage. Yeah, I could totally see it being an homage, but saying it's a cheap ripoff is disappointing in my opinion.
My biggest problem with the training montage, the training sequences, is the back-to-back critical problem. Like first, the dude who loses consciousness due to the G's. That's fine. But then you have to right on top of that have Phoenix and Bob have a problem with their jet. The back-to-back problems, like why are we doing this in one scene?
You've got to mix it up. And
that was a bad scene. And I see it mentioned in the chat. The other problem I have is we talked about this in the first movie, how Maverick in the span of the weeks and with the death of Goose and then with the conflict at the end of the movie, because that took place over a week or two, he managed to put Goose's death in place and move on from it. I do not really like in this movie how he keeps coming back to that. The first movie he'd made peace with it. By throwing Goose's dog tags into the ocean at the end of the movie, it showed he'd found his closure already. Bringing it back and making it a thing several times in the movie, I didn't like that. That bothered me.
I think a lot of it was because Rooster was around and it was bringing up old feelings. I wouldn't say that this necessarily undoes his character arc, because he's at a stable point. He's still flying, but he's remembering the past. He's like, Goose, talk to me, Goose.
Something about it.
And I like that, because he's.
I like to talk to me, Goose.
They didn't go back into the rut. He didn't go back into the rut. He's at his point where he's at closure to a certain extent, but Rooster is bringing up a lot of these feelings for him.
I felt they pushed it too hard.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see them going a little too hard on that.
But so the whole coming together of it, everything's worked, but I just feel like there's too much bloat, too many characters, and we don't spend enough time on characters needed more stuff. So we don't get enough time with Rooster. We don't get enough time with Hangman. We should have had more of those two at each other as the next generation. But instead, it's still about Maverick. And yes, it's called Top Gun Maverick. And of course, Tom Cruise is the star, and we want to see Maverick. But the setup for the next generation, if they do go through with a Top Gun 3, if they do go through with it, which I know they've been trying to do for the past couple of years, I don't feel like there's been enough for the next wave.
Tom is still going to be a major part of it, they've discussed. It isn't going to be the next one is they're in charge now. The baton is passing, and the end of the next movie would be when it fully passes. So
I understand that.
They introduce these characters, and then they build them up at the next one. So I like that approach. I think that would have worked a lot better for the Star Wars sequel trilogy, focusing on the original characters, then building up the new characters, and then giving them the third movie on their own.
But to my point, what I started to say earlier, by the time we get to Act 3 and everything's going down, I'm not caring enough about Rooster. I'm not, because I haven't connected to him enough with what he's done, and that lessens it for me, because I'm all in with the third act. The third act is badass. There's a lot of good stuff, and after they do the trench run, they bomb it. It's great, and Mav sacrifices himself to make sure that Rooster and the rest of Dagger team can get away. Okay. And then I realized, he's going down. Here comes the remaining 30 minutes of the movie. What's going to happen? I had forgotten, because, again, this is my first watch through. As good as I am, I'm not keeping track of every little thing. Up to that point, I had forgotten at the beginning of the movie, they had mentioned on this enemy tarmac, there was an F-14 Tomcat. After Rooster comes back and saves Maverick from the chopper, that's good. That's good. He gets shut down, and they're together, and they work it out, and now we're going to get out of here. Then I realized, they're going to take the Tomcat. And the rest of it's, and now here comes the predictability. A 40-year-old fighter. I don't know what generation to call it. Let's just say a 40-year-old at then top of the line, which was still in use long after, because the Tomcat was an outstanding piece of machinery, is going to go up against the 5th-gen fighters. And it's about the pilot. They keep repeating that. It's not about the plane, it's about the pilot. And only Maverick could have done this. Only Maverick. Not even Iceman could have done this. Only Maverick could have done this. And the whole sequence, when it starts, it's very cool, where he takes the first one by surprise and just mows it down with the machine gun. That's great. It's like, that's perfect tactics. While they're still getting into formation. Oh, here we go. You're down. Okay, here we go. And then it's on. It's a dogfight. And Maverick is using every trick in the book he knows with the Tomcat. And I'm surprised he didn't do, I'm going to hit the brakes, it's going to fly right by us. And I'm glad they resisted that. I'm glad they resisted doing that.
They basically did that maneuver.
Sort of. But he didn't say it. He didn't say it, didn't do it. So they didn't quite do it. But that whole sequence, it's great. It's fantastic.
It doesn't feel like he's... the girl bossy is the wrong word, but it feels justified. Him being able to fight these other super sophisticated jets, it all feels realistic in a way, even with the odds. Because, like you said, element of surprise, and then swooping in behind underneath the downed aircraft to take the first missile. That was another great one, just to make sure he was out of
Or-
the action and save his flares, using the terrain to mess with the
that's what I was
radar and the
gonna say.
targeting system.
That's my
just
favorite
so
moment.
smart.
That's my favorite moment. Maverick is treated as an intelligent hero here. He's using all his 30 years of knowledge to outwit something that is by far a superior machine. But the pilot is just used to that machine and lets the machine do everything for him, where Maverick knows there's a lot more than just letting the machine do the work. And like you just said, my favorite moment is when he says, all right, we're going to take it in low and the terrain is going to confuse his lock-on computer. That was brilliant. And that's cool.
And Maverick's always been flying around, like buzzing the tower and doing all this stuff. He's always focused on flying around in dangerous situations like this, like low to the ground with a lot of obstacles in the way. He's in his element there, whereas most pilots wouldn't be. And by comparison, I love how we don't even need to explain why it's so dangerous to be caught by the third fifth gen fighter over open water. There's no terrain to protect him. He's got nothing to use against for.
Gone. But that first one, it's a brilliant fight because every time, and here's where it's a great antagonist where, yes, that fifth gen fighter is so dangerous. And even with a pilot who's not as experienced as Maverick, the power of that jet nullifies some of his tricks. Like when he gets it around behind it, locks it on, and that thing just literally goes lateral and whoop, goes right. And they're just going, what was that? What do we do? We have to go more crazy. And it's a great fight. It's well choreographed. I was riveted. I'm thinking, Maverick's gonna win, but I want to see how he's gonna win. I want to see him do intelligent stuff, and no coincidences here, which I bet you loved. It's all strategy and experience, and quick thinking, and it's really cool. Now, of course, Rooster's just along for the ride. He's just like he's kind of doing a little bit of goose, telling where it is. Do you see it? Tell me when you got smoke. Tell me when something's launched. Tell me this, but because the radar wasn't even working at that point. It's all eyeball and shit. So it's a great sequence. I applaud it. It hit like we said earlier. It's the right amount of nostalgia. Maverick in an F-14 taking on this fifth gen bandit. It was great, and I like how they called them bandits instead of bogeys. Like they did in the first. They have a nice differentiation. We're going to call them bandits now, not bogeys. But it was great. I enjoyed it. And then like you said, and then they're finally free. And one more thing was going to happen. It's like, no, they're not clean. Oh, there's a third one coming straight for us. We're out of ammunition. We got no more missiles. We're done. And then, of course, Hangman swoops in predictably. And here's the thing. Hangman doesn't even a dogfight. It's the smart play. Shoot him when he's not looking. That guy was so focused on Maverick, he didn't even see Hangman coming in. Shoot him while he's not looking, get the win. Win is a win. But it was all good, and I appreciate it. And it leads to a nice little happy ending where everybody kind of is able to move on, reconciliations, this and that. We don't know exactly where Maverick's going from here in terms of his career. But he's happy with Penny. They're going to give it a chance, a real chance. Because before he left, when he showed up in his dress whites, to me, I thought he was proposing to her when he did that. I thought he was proposing to her, saying, let's make this real before I go. But no.
I'm glad they didn't.
Oh, yeah. That would have made it too schmaltzy. Would have made it too much. But it still was an important. It made it feel important that Maverick is putting down roots. And that's why I accept Penny as a part of the movie, because it's showing Maverick's. Because let's be honest, what more character growth do you need from Maverick? He doesn't need to do much else. The one story he would have left with is he ready to stop roaming the world with assignments and be in one place.
This is where it makes sense for him to go be a permanent instructor at Top Gun, not at the end of the first film. That's one of my few major criticisms of the first movie. Is I hate that he decides to go. Yeah. And so this is where it would make sense. That's his end goal. That's what retirement would look like for Maverick in my mind. If he doesn't die in a blaze of glory, instructing at Top Gun. And you still need all that epic stuff that he does in the intervening years. But I think that's the best ending for him, is to give him the first movie's ending when it's justified.
Yeah.
And we're getting there.
But it works at the end there, and that's why I think Penny does work like that. And Kel says, yeah, like Han Solo coming saving their asses. Yeah, but we're way past the trench scene at that point, so I don't. You could say that, but we're not going to compare to that. Other than that, everybody's performances are solid for the most part. As we said earlier, Tom Cruise slipped right back into being Pete Mitchell. It was great. Everybody, all the other characters are fine. I just wanted more from them, honestly. Just wanted more from them. And the soundtrack is good. We get the nostalgic stuff. I have one problem with the soundtrack, just one. The final song at the end. I cannot stand Lady Gaga. I think she's horrible.
There's other better modern day artists they could have chosen.
And they had Hans Zimmer doing some of this shit. That's how much they cared about making this movie. They brought in Hans Zimmer. But Lady Gaga, she's not. People say, "Oh, she could sing really well." No, she can't. Her voice is appalling. It's terrible. And her being the final thing I hear as this movie's closing out ruined the last couple minutes of the movie for me. I'm watching happy ending. They're taking a flight in a good old-fashioned Mustang. They're going to fly around. We're seeing Rooster having reconciled. He's touching the picture of him and Maverick next to the picture of him and his dad, of Maverick and his dad. It's just good stuff. But I got Lady Gaga blaring in my ears. Ruins it. Ruins it. She's terrible. She's a terrible singer and a terrible actress. No one will ever convince me otherwise. Horrible. But otherwise, the rest of the movie's fine. I had a good time. I enjoyed it for a first watch. It justifies its existence. It belongs on the shelf next to the original. I'll happily buy a copy and put it there. I'll buy it on physical media. I got no problem with that. And if they manage to create more of a franchise from this, do a proper baton handoff where we get more from Rooster. I mean, if we have Rooster and Phoenix go forward and have a relationship later on, I'm okay with that if they goes down that road later. But give me more Hangman. Give me more of this stuff. Do something more.
They've laid the groundwork for a potential series without Tom Cruise. They're not ready for it yet. A lot of people came out of the theater saying, I wouldn't watch a Top Gun with Rooster and Hangman without Tom Cruise right now. I do think at a point they would be able to in a potential fourth movie, maybe. That's where I'd say we need another movie to fully pass the baton.
They need some story. They need some story.
Absolutely.
Something. Like, give them a buddy cop moment. Have them really bond and do stuff. That's what I would need. I wouldn't be against it, but I need more. Because one of the failings of this movie is they didn't give us enough of the secondary characters. And maybe rightfully so, because we're all here to see Maverick. Let's be honest. We're all here to see Maverick, and we're rooting for him to get his wins. But that is one of the things of that. I think I've said all I want to say. You want to add anything else?
There's a little bit. So there's this, I don't know if you'd call it a theme, but there's recurring mentions of Tom being dedicated to no one dying on this mission, but all the other generals are like, it's going to happen. You've got to accept it. And I wish that would have paid off at some point later on in the film. I get him
Somebody
sacrificing.
had to die. Somebody had to die.
I think somebody had to die, and maybe not necessarily in the trench run. I think it would have been a lot better if potentially in that scene that you were talking about earlier, where we had the G-Lock and the bird strike right back to back. Those needed to be separated. Both moments are fine. They just can't be back to back. Have one of them be a big failure, and that be the catalyst for Rooster to get over his overcautious nature. Also, depending on who died, could be a catalyst for Hangman realizing, I left my wingman. The kind of classic arc.
It's missing the stuff the first movie did.
So I think one of them, one of the planes going down in training would have gotten Tom to come to reconciliation about sometimes people die and that's horrible. And Hangman coming up with, I need to do teamwork, and Rooster being, you have to, have yourself all in or mistakes can happen. Like just one moment could have ignited character arcs for so many of the other characters and trimmed up the fat with a lot of these characters. I think Phoenix and Bob would have been the good choice, and then have that dynamic that I was talking about earlier. One of the other sets of playing crews that we haven't been following to this point, thrust upon them and building them up as characters. And I think that just would have worked a lot better. I would have gone with Phoenix and Bob, but even the first guy who went G-Lock, and I really like that scene where Tom's, the only thing he can do is try to shoot him down so that sound tries to wake him up. I think that It's very intelligent from
Yeah.
Maverick once again. But having one of those things be fatal, I think would have helped a lot. Not necessarily in the stakes of the mission, because those are unrelated to the mission, or at least the bird strike was unrelated to the mission. The mission has great stakes, but character-wise, I think a death would have revitalized a lot of the side characters.
There's nothing jarring. I mean, one could say, oh, but then you're just repeating the first movie. Well, that's not a bad thing in this sense, because you need to have these moments to change a character, because we clearly understand that Rooster is hesitant to max it out because of his father's death. Clearly. But they don't spend enough time building that for us. And it's great to see him overcome it during the mission. He locks it in. We're going to kick some ass, take some names. But there's not enough. There's not enough connective tissue for the secondary characters. There just isn't.
Or if we want to go away from the first movie, have someone crippled and having to deal with life not being a fighter pilot.
I like that Maverick.
Having Maverick look in the face someone who's like, you're like me, your whole life was being a fighter pilot. You have nothing outside of this. And then it can be taken away in an instant. What do you have outside of this? I think a crippling actually would have looked
that would have been better than
a lot better.
It's a different tone, and that is an even bigger fear of somebody like that. Death, it's over. You're done. But a crippling thing, suddenly you can't do anything.
Yeah, I think Maverick would fear cripple more than death.
You can't do what you used to do. I mean, we're not saying a handicap is the end of life, but being in a wheelchair with only maybe using half your body at that point, you can't be a fighter pilot anymore. Can't do it. So
well, there's a lot of stuff you could do. Have Hangman be the one who's paralyzed and not going on the mission, but he's still on the aircraft carrier, or he's injured to a degree that he couldn't go on the mission. And it's not necessarily stated at the end of the film if he's going to save them on orders or not. It's assumed because it's hard to get off an aircraft character. Yeah. But have an arc with him saying, I'm going to take this plane and I'm going to go save them no matter what you guys say. Yeah. And that could have tied
showed
his
him
arc.
Wanting to get out there, but we then cut away from it. And the other point of that, it's a very good thought that these guys needed more to do right at the end. Or to your point, it would have been even better if Hangman had been the one chosen and Rooster was the replacement. That's a better story right there. Or something along those lines. Somebody's injured and the replacement has to come in. Because remember, that's the first movie. Maverick's on standby at the end of the movie, and only gets out there because Hollywood got shot down. So it's
and there was a dynamic for that decision to be made as well that was set up at Maverick had a choice. He either had Hangman, a wingman he can't trust, or Rooster, someone he's going to go out of his way to protect, as we see, and someone who is unwilling to go the extra to take risk. You need someone as a wingman who's going to take risks.
And also someone that Maverick doesn't fully believe in. He doesn't fully believe in Rooster. He doesn't have the confidence in him.
So his wingman choices were not good. So he could have just said, hey, you're unwilling to take risks. That's why I did it. It's not because I want to protect you. And that could have been an interesting come to realization moment for Rooster. Like they're set up for a lot of great character stuff that is left on the table. I think there's still incredible character stuff, but there's a potential for so much more.
Agreed. Totally agreed. And that's why I'm going to give it the rating I'm going to give it. So I don't have any. So are we done? I think we're done.
I think we're done.
All right. It's your week. You get to go first.
All right. So I absolutely love this film. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's one of the only long lost sequels that I think justifies its existence. And I understand people saying that this is better than the original. I don't agree, though.
No. Let's talk about that. We didn't talk about that. Sorry. Yeah. Good point. So finish your thought on that part. Go ahead.
Well, and yeah, a lot of people were saying that when it came out. I was one of the few who were saying the original is better, especially because the character work in the first one is so damn good. But this one, I think, is close. The main things that make the original eke out over this one is the Jennifer Connelly story. I don't like her story at all. I feel like we could do a lot better. I do like the idea of him, making a commitment. There's just a lot better ways of doing it, or at least have a more interesting character involved in that. I just don't like her character at all. That might be subjective, but I despise her character. And then, just the lack of development with the side characters. All the side characters in the original film were so great. Like Hollywood, like you were just mentioning. We got 2 scenes with him, and I understood him. I felt bad for him, and it instigated the whole movie as his lapse, and Maverick having to face that.
Or Wolfman, who's always in the side rooting for Maverick, but doesn't get a lot of screen time, but we know that he's friends with Maverick and he's got his back, or he's saying Maverick's in trouble, he's going to quit, something like that. So there's all that good
even
stuff.
with less screen time, they were able to develop those side characters so much better. Like, I feel like I understand Hollywood way better than I do anyone besides Rooster from the list of side characters. And that was just a staple of the writing. So there are a few things that eke it out over. I think I gave the original one an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5. This one is close, but just a little short, so I have to give this one a 7.5 out of 10.
And to my point, this is not better than the original. It's a good movie. It has proper pacing. The character work is good, but the character work in the first one is better because it's laser focused on characters. The reason the first one is better is because we know who we're watching. We know who we're getting the story about. There's too many characters in this movie. And granted, they may be trying to set up for a future run of spin-offs and sequels, but there's not enough time delivered to justify all their little bits of stories. So you're lacking in full character investment. At the same time, the fact that there's a mission hovering over the whole movie makes it cool, but it kind of changes the genre. Like you said before, these are both action-oriented movies, but they're two totally different movies. Maybe in a similar way, Alien is different from Aliens. We're kind of dealing with an apple and an orange here. They're both fruit, but they're not the same. So to say that Top Gun Maverick is better than Top Gun, on that base alone, I can't say that because these are two different types of movies. And at the same time, I enjoy all the aspects of this movie. I like the choreography with the fighters is fantastic. I feel it. The characters, what we get from them are genuine. Everybody feels realistic in this. Nobody feels like they're not developed. Well, not developed. They're not organic. Everything's organic in this movie. Nothing feels tacked on. Not a sniff of agenda whatsoever. And it is just plain fun. And it ends in the kind of high octane, just let's have a great action-y movie at the very end. That being said, I'm not sure what I gave the original, but like you, I can't quite go beyond an 8 out of 10 on this one. So I give it an 8 out of 10. You gave it a 7.5. That's about, to me, where it lands. I believe I gave the original a 9. I think I gave it on our review a 9. I have to go back and look. But this is an 8 out of 10. It does everything right. It entertains, but its problems persist in the sense that it doesn't, it tries to do too much at times. And maybe that's Tom Cruise trying to do too much himself. I don't know. But it's still a good movie. I will enjoy further repeat watches as time moves on. And it deserves to live on the shelf next to the original. It's not like other sequels, or as you put it, long sequels, which we will kind of say, yeah, that didn't happen. We're stopping here, and I'm not going to buy it because I don't want it tainting my shelf. No, Top Gun Maverick deserves to be on my shelf because it doesn't disrespect the franchise, just like they didn't disrespect giving Val Kilmer an honorable send-off, both as the character and an actor in this. Because the respect shown to him, that gets it up there enough for me as well. All right, but that said, we are finished. I have chosen our movie for next week. Let's do a little classic. Let's do a little World War II. Let's discuss The Great Escape. Oh, it's a good movie. That's a good movie. Long, but good. Anyways, thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're watching on my channel, you will be shifted over to Ballbusters Gaming tonight Among Us in about an hour and a half. You can join us there. A lot of horrible things are going to be said, and we're going to mean every damn word of it when we play that game. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channels, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, guys, take it easy.